Okay.
So, today I have Alexis Davis Smith with Precise Communications out of Atlanta here. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Amy. Nice to speak with you today.
Yeah, you too. I really appreciate it. I know you're quite busy, so
Yes, it has been a busy couple of weeks. So I'm very happy that I love what I do and I have a passion for what I do. So the fact that I'm functioning on very little sleep is made
Mhm.
up by the fact that I love what I do. So,
Well, that's good. So, can
yes.
you tell us what you do?
Yes. So I am the president and CEO and founder of Precise Communications, and we are an award winning Atlanta based marketing communications firm. And we specialize in connecting leading consumer brands with multicultural consumers with a great focus on African Americans and Latinx consumers. So we do everything in the marketing communications realm with the exception of advertising and buying. So, but we have a partner for that. But we specialize in offering strategic counsel and implementing that through media relations, experiential marketing, digital marketing, and of course, brand marketing.
Okay. So, I saw that you have Coca-Cola and Toyota as clients. Is that
Excuse me. Yes, so actually, Coca-Cola isn't a current client of ours, but it is our first and longest standing client. When I left Ketchum Public Relations at the end of 1999, and I branched out on my own to start Precise Communications, the very first phone call I received was from Coca-Cola to work on Super Bowl 34. And from there, our business grew. We implemented more than 100 consumer-based programs for them, everything from launching the Coca-Cola fridge pack to programs in the Hispanic market, such as Coca-Cola, the Telenovela Club, and then several programs in the African American space, including helping them launch their Pay It Forward scholarship program and a variety of other things over the years. So, but right now, our largest client is Toyota. We've been working with them for about 6 years in the multicultural space, African American as well as Latinx, really helping them to enhance their brand relationships with those audiences, consumers, influencers, media, doing a lot of media relations outreach for them, as well as brand activations for them.
so? What about now? How has your work changed now with the current uprising?
Our work has been interesting, Amy, and it's so funny because, I had kind of had to laugh with some of my friends who have also been in this space for a while, and some of the coverage and things that I've seen. I've kind of said, hey, had y'all listened to me 20 years ago when I started talking about this stuff, it might not be in this position right now, you know.
But wait, when you say that, do you mean like your clients might not be in this position,
And
or
not, I'm just saying kind of corporate America.
okay?
Exactly, just corporate America in particular. My clients come to me for this expertise. And so I don't really have those issues and challenges with them. And I have been fortunate enough and blessed enough to work with clients who get this space and understand that they have to do something in it. I mean, Coca-Cola was the first company to include an African American in their advertising, and their commitment to the Black community has been unwavering. When we started working with Toyota, one of the things that I noticed about them was, they had contributed to the United Negro College Fund. They had partnerships with National Urban League and NAACP and all these wonderful things, but consumers didn't really know it. So I was excited to work with them and to help, increase awareness of their relationship. So I'm fortunate enough, to have those kind of clients who are smart. But trust me, I've done a lot of new business pitches trying to get people to understand the business case of why
So
reaching out to Black consumers is important. And they don't always get it.
it seems like it would be quite important because I could go off in so many different directions
Right.
because it's really interesting that to have a multicultural firm when it's like America is multicultural. I mean, there's that, but
Mm-hmm.
you kind of need to like talk to different audiences in America.
Exactly.
And you
Right.
probably might want an expert within those audiences and within those cultures to like help you.
Exactly.
Um, But I kind of want to go back to something you originally said, that you and your peers in the space are talking about what's happening right now that is not about your clients, and you're kind of looking at corporate America. And what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, you know, it should not take an uprising for corporate America to want to step in and address societal and political issues, because truly they're the ones that have influence and power. And so I think what consumers are recognizing is that really challenging the consumer brands that they love to support them is really making the companies wake up. And, you know, one of the things that's happened, millennials and particularly Gen Z, that's a huge part of their purchasing decision. They want to support brands that support social causes. But in the African American community, it's always been that way. We have always been influenced by companies who, you know, give scholarships, provide mentoring programs, who we see active in the community, who we see advertised in the publications where we consume our information and media. That's always been a very important factor. So anytime I, you know, do new business pitches, I talk about that. When I counsel our clients, I always include in our counsel and recommendations that there needs to be some kind of community component. And that's one of the things that I love about what I do, is I really try to leverage my role and my influence to make a difference in the community as well. And if I can leverage my relationship with corporate clients to pay attention to some of these things and make a difference, then I'm happy to do that.
And you're kind of talking about the external community, so making a difference externally. What about internally with
Okay.
D&I, diversity and inclusion?
Right.
Internally, is there anyone talking about that with you, or do you advise on that?
So here's the thing, Amy. I have to explain this a lot. There's a lot of confusion between multicultural marketing and D&I. People seem to think that they are the same thing. They are not the same thing. Multicultural marketing is truly focused on your external audiences, your consumers, your stakeholders, where D&I is really about your internal audience. It's about recruiting and retaining. So those are really two different messages. However, they are both extremely important. So your internal audience, you have to make sure that your African American employees are happy, because they're your brand ambassadors. They're the ones that are going out talking about you every single day, in a good way or a bad way. We hope that it's a positive way. So I will tell you, a majority of our work has really been in the multicultural marketing space. But over the last year, just because of our insights and our expertise, we have started kind of moving into the D&I space. And we didn't even know that was going to happen. But there is a natural overlap, and there are some rules and kind of guidelines and best practices that you can apply to the D&I audience. So to answer your question, this is kind of what I've been doing. I've been saying to my clients that focus on the external effort, what are you doing internally? And I've been asking them a list of questions, because what's happening now is consumers are making their decisions based on what's happening inside of a company. So, you know, we've seen statements from every single company out here. So then the question is, okay, you've released a statement. I see you now. I hear you. We're with you. We're supporting you. Black Lives Matter, when people used to be scared to say Black Lives Matter. But then people are saying, okay, but then how many Black people are on your board? How many Black people are on your leadership team in the C-suites? How many Black employees do you have? So companies are really going to have to go through an internal checklist and recognize that they're going to be scrutinized at a level they've never been before. So I think this is a good time for our country. I think it's a good time for corporate America. It's been tough. It's been emotional. We've lost lives. But I also think it's a time of inflection, and there's a time for improvement. And so many companies are saying they're doing that work, and they're committed to doing that work. So that's the positive that I think has come out of all this human collateral damage, unfortunately. But I think that companies are going to take a much more active role in making sure that some of the things that have been happening in our society does not happen. But they're also going to look and start really, really paying attention to their internal employees, because what's happening is everything that's happening on the outside, now Black employees inside the company are really expressing how they feel.
Good.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is how I interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
You internally, if you are doing this work, the real D&I work, you are walking the talk. So the talk, okay, let me just say the talk is the external stuff, right?
Yes.
But then what are you doing internally? And then
Right.
isn't that maybe where change could be created? Because yeah, we can write a check and I can write a press release about it, but who's making the decision to write the check, right? Or who's on the board? And that's what you're talking about. And I think for me, I just look, as you work with your clients for a long time, you start to see things. And you can't help but notice. And so then you have to start to bring ideas to their attention. And now as PR people, I do feel that D&I is a part of what not that we do it. I'm not going to go in and say I can do D&I internal, but it's like just flagging it, saying, hey, let's look at this. Right. So I'm just curious if you're having to do a little bit more of that now or how that works.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Because, whether clients have, proactively called us, if they have not proactively called us in whatever we're doing, we have stopped and said, let's pause and try to engage and learn a little bit more about what's happening internally. And, we've provided counsel, like I said, on the checklist. Are you guys looking at this, this, and this? We've looked at statements, we've provided statements, provided insight on these are the kind of questions that you may get, because we do understand this consumer space, and we have to understand that employees are consumers as well. And because we understand how African Americans think in terms of their mindset, their interests, their values, what's important to them, how they feel about everything that's happening out here in society and in politics, some of those same insights and applications that we would apply to multicultural marketing, we can provide in terms of the DI counseling as well. But it's really up to the D&I teams to make sure that these things happen.
Oh yeah.
And change does not come overnight, but you can look at your policies and improve them much more quickly.
Yeah, you have to look at them first.
Right. Yes. You definitely have to look at them, and you have to look at how do you implement and affect real change. And like you said, you have to walk the talk. And now that I think more eyes are on brands, they know they have to step up to the plate, and they can't, do some of the things that they've done in the past. But Amy, this is what I say to people all the time. We have to remember we live in the United States of America that has a rich history of oppression. We have slavery. We just, got our rights to vote in 65. That's not even 100 years. 64. That's not even 100 years. So there's still a lot that we're dealing with. So it's growing and it's evolving. So we can't bury our heads in the sand and say that racism does not exist. And so corporate America is a microcosm of America. So if you feel a certain way before you walk in the door of your office, it doesn't just all of a sudden go away. Like, I'm a perfect person. I love everyone. So, it's recognizing all of that and being courageous enough. And I love the term courageous brands. It's being courageous enough to address that internally, because the only way we're going to overcome all this stuff is we have to talk about it, and we have to build some understanding. And that's the first step. And that has to happen internally for real change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So talking about oppression, I just saw, this is kind of a question that is, kind of going back into your history of your
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
because I noticed something in your LinkedIn that
Mm-hmm.
you started your firm 20 years ago, which is quite
Mm-hmm.
impressive. But
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that you started your firm right after you only worked at one other place. So it
Mm-hmm.
was one place, a good PR firm,
Mm-hmm.
for 7 years, and then you
Yes.
started your own firm. Now, I don't see that a lot. So
Right.
I was wondering, because it looks like you started your firm kind of after you started the multicultural division at the other firm, then you
Mm-hmm.
started your firm. And I was wondering if you did that because maybe the previous firm, it just wasn't, what was happening at the previous firm? Was it kind of like you weren't able to do the things you wanted to do, or how was that?
Now, I will tell you this. Yes, it was an international PR firm, and if anybody goes on my LinkedIn, they'll see it. I am so grateful for the opportunities that I received from that firm. I still have great relationships with several of the firm's leaders. I believe a lot of how I run Precise to this day is because of what I learned there. And I think that working with any agency is like the boot camp for PR. You can do anything. I think you can run the world if you work for a PR agency.
Maybe you
I
should run the world then. Can you please? Why don't you get
we
out of PR and do
we
something
need
else?
more women. We clearly need more women. But I left because, agency turnover is always high. But I left because I just really started feeling like I wanted to practice PR on my own terms. And, when you work for an agency, a lot of it becomes about billability.
Mm-hmm.
And moving you around and things like that. And so for me, I understand that, and trust me, I understand it even more now, owning an agency, billability and profitability. I'm like, oh, that's why they didn't want me to write that time off. I get it now. Okay, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really because I have such an entrepreneurial spirit that I think I was meant to lead. I come from entrepreneurial people. My mom has run businesses. My father has run businesses. And also, Amy, a big part of it was I was 29 years old. I loved my job, but my whole life became about my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling a lot, which was cool. I traveled the world. I met Prince Albert of Monaco. I met Shakira. I worked with LL Cool J. I did all these cool things. Traveled to all these Latin American countries. Did all these cool things. And you're right. I started one of the co-founders of the African American Markets Group, which we loved. But I started losing my personality, and I felt like my soul because I was working so much. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't talking to my friends as much. I wasn't going out. I couldn't keep a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't seeing my family. And so it just became too much. And I said, you know what? I think I want to take a step back. I want to do what I love to do, but I really just want to do it on my own terms. And I started Precise. And honestly, Amy, I just thought I was going to be a solo practitioner, just a counselor, and I would do freelance work and I would pop out here and there. I did not know it was going to be 20 years later. I would have an office in downtown Atlanta. I would have a full-time staff and all the things that go with it, and work on big brands like Toyota and Pfizer and Mass Mutual and Nielsen. I had no idea that was going to happen, but I don't regret it. So, was there anything like, salacious or anything? No, it was time for me. And you're right. A lot of people, you don't see that a lot. You definitely
Mm-hmm.
don't see that a lot. But you do see it more, I think, in the African American community than you probably see in other places, because we believe so much in entrepreneurship so that we can start really working on the economic impact of the African American community, as well as trying to build our own generational wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of, it's what you said, you're in charge of your life and your time.
Right.
And so that does make sense. So it really was about your life.
Yes.
But sometimes I can read between the lines. And now listening to you, I'm hearing,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it wasn't about even the firm.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, sometimes I like to be an entrepreneur because it means I don't have to do what my clients want me to do. Because sometimes, and I could imagine that there could be some emptiness behind working on some multicultural marketing, when it's kind of like just face marketing and you're not really looking at the inside or the motivation. And so if you're doing things that clients tell you to do because you have to, because you're employed, that could feel a little empty. And so being your own boss, you can kind of say, you know what, this relationship's not working for me. And I can just go get a different client.
Exactly. And, and I've said that to people before, and they're always surprised because, they figure if you're an entrepreneur, you're not one of the big agencies. Why wouldn't you take everything that comes your way? And I remind people that's why I started Precise. I wanted to work with companies and brands that I believed in, whether they were already down the road and extremely successful in the multicultural marketing space, or if they really truly had a passion for it and they wanted to improve it, but their heart and spirit was in the right place. And I'm going to give you an example of that if you don't mind.
No, I'd love it.
So we had the opportunity to work on Cracker Barrel Old Country Store, and we were actually brought in as a strategic partner to one of the larger agencies in town. And we went and we pitched that business. And prior to going in, I had friends and family that were like, Cracker Barrel? And I kept hearing all these stories about bad experiences they had with Cracker Barrel. And I said, well, one, I have to admit, I like Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. There's that.
Right. Don't eat as much as now because I'm older. My body can't afford it. I was like, and I had never personally had a bad experience with a Cracker Barrel. And I live in Georgia. But what made me really decide to join it was the man who was the president at the time.
Oh, okay. So you looked into him
I looked into him, but more importantly, I had a conversation with him. And I knew he had a heart to really address the situations and he wanted to change it. I felt his genuine spirit and leadership for wanting to make a change and to address all of those issues. And so out of that relationship, we were able to create a scholarship program at Spelman College. That's an endowed scholarship that is there to this day. And it benefits history students. And Spelman had never had a scholarship for history students.
Oh, okay.
And so we created that. So it was a great way for us to really make a difference in the lives of young people. And that's the kind of work that we really try to do and to try to get our clients to do it. Because those are the things that really make a difference and really help us think of a brand more favorably.
Mm-hmm. So are you getting a lot of calls now from new brands that all of a sudden need your help?
You know what's so funny, Amy? I've been getting new business calls, but I was getting some before this stuff started to happen. But I am getting more outreach from fellow PR colleagues who want to partner with me. I've probably gotten a couple, like maybe 2 calls over the last week or so. But it's been interesting. It's more of my colleagues in the PR network who are recognizing that this is a space they haven't paid as much attention to as they need to or would like to. And so they're really kind of like seeking our counsel for that. But I anticipate that we probably will get more calls over the next couple of weeks as companies kind of figure out what it is that they're going to do and what they want to do.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to leave with the last question, talking about young, diverse women in our industry in PR.
Yes.
And I just want to ask you, what advice do you have for them right now? Because I assume, you're still feeling in the world. It's not always a safe place for young Black women. And I don't know why I'm saying women. I just think it because we're 2 women talking.
Right.
I guess you could give advice to men as well. But anything that you want to say to them as they're trying to climb the ladders and create their own careers?
I think one thing is be courageous and be proud of who you are. and to build your career off of that. I think it's very important in the PR and communication space to not just look at your role as a function or a job, but to look at it as an influencer. We truly have the power to influence how people see other people and how people see the world. And I think if you're a woman, you have a responsibility to speak up as a woman and on behalf of women. Even if you're in a room full of men, I think we cannot, shrink like violets. We have to be confident and we have to speak up. And then if you are, a person that is of minority or a person of color, then you definitely have to be courageous and speak on behalf to help people understand. Because one of the things that I've recognized too is, a lot of times people talk about unconscious bias. That's true. That exists. But a lot of times people just function in their comfort zone. So they don't know what other cultures and other worlds or neighborhoods are like because they live in one way, And so I think it's our job to help other people understand, audiences and people and things that don't look like them or behaviors that they might not necessarily display or experience themselves. So I would say, really be courageous, be confident, go for whatever you want, have a strategic plan to do so, and don't let anybody stop you.
That's almost like the perfect ending, but I just have to say two more things. Okay. Number one, I just want to add, I don't know. I'm not a minority, so I don't know, but I just would think that it's only our job to make people understand because we're in marketing, right?
Right.
So because if you're a minority, you don't really need to feel the burden of helping everybody understand stuff like if you're an accountant, right? But it's our job. Marketing is perception.
Yes.
So you can't have perception if you're living in a bubble, but maybe continue to live in that bubble, but look out of it, You
have to. You know what, Amy, I say that all the time. I say, if you are a marketing communications professional, and especially if you're working inside of a brand, or even if you're an agency, if you understand your client's consumer base and recognize that they're not all 100% Caucasian, but all of your activities and marketing strategies don't include, a Hispanic or African American nuanced approach, you're not really doing your job because you're leaving money on the table for clients. African Americans have $1.3 trillion in buying power. All the multicultural groups combined together drive profit, sales, and growth. So if you're not speaking to them, you're not advising your clients or your bosses as well as you should be. So I agree with you. That's a part of our job.
Yes. And then last thing is you have a podcast and it's called, what is it? Culture.
Our podcast is called Culture and Convos.
Okay.
And we are rescheduling our next one, but it's going to be about everything kind of that you and I just talked about today, but it's going to be about politics and Black consumers and how those intersect. And we're looking at the date of June 22nd. But I recommend everyone follow us on social media. On IG, we are PreciseCom ATL. And on, did I say on IG?
Yes.
Yes, IG. Okay, yes.
And I'll add the link. I'll add those. Everything.
So I'm just going to say, check us out on social media because they change between IG and Twitter. Sometimes I confuse them. But check us out on social media because we will be doing a live podcast via Zoom either next Monday or next Tuesday.
Okay. And then your live podcast, will that also be, it'll probably be recorded. But
it'll also be recorded, and Culture and Convos is available on Apple, SoundCloud, and there's probably another one that I forgot.
Yeah, all the places.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
as long as people are following you, then they won't miss out, because it
Yes.
sounds really fascinating.
Yes.
And we
It's
just
going to
need
be a
to know.
great topic. Yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be a really good, great topic. That's one I'm really excited about. And I've been talking to my producer, also my account executive, that this might need to be a two-parter or a three-parter. So we'll see.
Yeah, and your last topic was talking about coronavirus and the effect on the
Yes,
community, which is because it's affecting the community, your community, in a different way.
definitely.
So
Definitely. Yes.
people need
And
to look at that.
yes, and that will be up by Monday. So yes, definitely check
Okay.
us out.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you. I appreciate
Well,
your time.
thank you, Amy. I appreciate your time. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for calling me.